Hola todos! A-Level Spanish Paper 1 is all about listening, reading and writing. In this video, I'm going to talk about how to revise for this exam and what common questions look like and how to go about them. I have a separate video all about the reading and listening summary questions, but I will mention them in this video too. This video is specifically for the AQA A-Level paper, but the general advice will be applicable to EdXL as well, because both paper 1s for AQA and EdXL are quite similar. Vale, venga, vamos! So, to run through the basics about this paper, Section 1 is called Listening and Writing and is worth 30 marks, and Section B is Reading and Writing and worth 70 marks. For these 100 marks, you get 2 hours and 30 minutes. Realistically, this paper can be done in much less time, especially the 2 translation questions at the end. Usually I spend more time on the listening section than advised, and less time on the rest of the paper. Either way, once you do some past papers, you will figure out the best way to manage your time that works for you. And unlike GCSE, you get headphones and a computer, so you have full control over the audio. The paper contains a lot of multiple choice questions and short answer questions, which in my opinion is what makes this paper easy. The questions are usually always in chronological order with the text. Here's a couple examples of listening questions. Many students lose marks in these positive-negative questions because they put only positive or only negative when the answer is actually both positive and negative. Multiple choice questions as a whole can be super simple, but you should always attempt the question twice to make sure your answer is correct. And then on your exam paper, you can of course make as many notes as you want outside the answer box, so always use the space to write down the keywords from what you hear. Along with multiple choice, you also get short answer questions like this one on the right. These are again in chronological order, so I would first listen to the entire audio and to make short notes about the general concept and topic, and then one by one answer each question. Sometimes the mark scheme can be really particular about what is accepted, so some students might write too much or too little information. The best way to guarantee success is practice, and I'll talk more about how to revise for the paper as a whole later on. Now, another type of listening question that comes up quite often is where they give you a list of phrases and you have to pick the correct ones. When you're listening to the audio, one by one, they will either say each one as if that statement is correct, give a contrasting statement, so therefore the one in the questions is not correct, or just not mention it. You have to be really careful to only pick the 5 or 6 actually correct statements. But again, as it is multiple choice, if need be, you can just guess. Never leave any multiple choice questions blank in any exam. There's also a summary question in the listening section, but I'll talk about that later on in this video. With the reading questions, there is again a wide variety of the format of the question. You are always given a separate insert that has some of the longer reading texts printed onto it. Like with listening, there's multiple choice questions and short answer questions. And there's 2 specific questions that AQA likes. One is where you have to find the synonym in the text. These are very much easy 1 markers, though sometimes they do catch you out. With these really short questions, it often won't take you a minute per mark, so you will have lots of extra time accumulated at the end, which I would use for the harder questions. Another one of AQA's favorite type of question is the gap fill. I'm going to attempt this question right now, and on screen I'll put an explanation of the steps I'm doing. It's a 10-mark question, so I'm going to roughly spend 10 minutes on it. Now to talk about the summary questions. These come up twice in the paper, once in the listening section and once in reading. They're 12 marks each. I have a separate video on how to answer the summary questions, which I will link in the description. These generally are the trickiest questions on the paper because of their format, so definitely practice them and look at the mark scheme properly to know what is expected from you. At the end of this paper, you get two translation questions, one of which is English into Spanish. For the A-level paper, unlike the AS1, you get a paragraph in Spanish, which is taken from one of the reading texts. This is to help you with vocabulary. My personal recommendation, and what I do in practice papers, is attempt these questions first. There's not too much of a reason behind it, but you'd either do the translation questions first or last. Doing them in the middle wouldn't make sense. And if you leave them till the end, you might get a bit tired, so I do them at the start. You can always do a first draft at the start of the exam, and then come back to them at the end. I have a video where I practiced A-level translation questions, and I'll be making more in the future. To revise for this paper, quite obviously the main thing is vocabulary. I use Anki flashcards for vocab, and I have another video I made last year on how I revise vocab, so check that out afterwards. For AQA, I have quiz and study sets for each module for both Year 1 and Year 2, and you can find links for them in the description and on my website. Also on my website, I have two documents with the extra vocabulary, which is in the Oxford textbook, but doesn't come up in the big vocab list at the end of each module. I recommend learning as many words as possible, so have a flick through those PDFs and learn any unfamiliar words. Grammar, too, is really important for this paper. Know all of your endings, especially for irregular verbs. Grammar can become really tricky during the summary questions, where you have to be able to manipulate from one form or tense to another. And doing actual past paper ones in time conditions is a great way to practice and see how much you know. If you feel like you want to save the AQA papers for later on, or you've finished them all already, have a go at Excel ones. There's a few differences between both exam boards, but the general vocab and grammar expectations are the same, so have a go at Edexcel paper ones. And I would do the AS papers first, then A level. So if you're in year 12, for example, print out some AS papers and get going with them. If you want to take the greatest advantage of these past papers, do all of the AQA and Edexcel AS papers, and then all of the AQA and Edexcel A level papers before your final year 13 exam. And that is the absolute best way to practice and prepare yourself. Eso es todo para este video. I will be making loads more A-level videos in the lead up to exam season, so subscribe to see those. All the videos I've mentioned are linked in the description. Adios!